I don't know, mate. Don't ask me.
I'm going to parrot. And
wait,
what
if I do something stupid?
What if I do something stupid?
Oh no. Can you see? Can you see? Good. Hello. Right, well hello everyone. Thank you for coming. It's a really hot night and the air conditioning's broken. But this is the art shop that we made, which is only going to be here for another couple of days. But the reason for doing it, one of the reasons for doing it, was to get artists in and get them involved and do something for the community. And I wanted to do something really special with it while it was here. So I'm really pleased that these guys are going to join us tonight, and hopefully we're going to have a meaty discussion about accessibility, arts, education, and all that stuff. I'm Stuart, I'm an artist. I make art materials to share with other artists, quite often on a non-profit basis, because I think good art materials is a basic thing you need to express yourself, and unfortunately that's been over corporatized, and I like the idea of artists sharing their things with other artists, which is why I did it. One of the things I've made here is a new red called Emergency Red for these guys, and all the profits from Emergency Red will go towards supporting you with the great things you do, and hopefully we'll be selling that forever on our website. At least in about 2 weeks' time it'll be up.
Brilliant.
And, yeah, that's it, but welcome.
Really amazing. It's so I'm Neil. I founded Arts Emergency back in 2013 officially, and yeah, it's really special to actually hold something in my hand. Somebody said they'll do something for our cause. Stuart and I had a lovely phone conversation a few months ago. Really clicked around our core issue. So we're a mentoring charity and an alternative old boy network for people that don't have that kind of support network in their lives. We work all across London through sixth forms and FE colleges, and we also work around the Northwest and in East Kent. And yeah, it's by the paint, because every single place that we can create on our program really does change people's life chances. And yeah, it's really good to be here to chat about our core issue, which is everybody's right to flourish and to take part in their natural inheritance, which is our culture, our shared culture, and to produce that culture as well. It's a really important issue for me, but politically it was important because we're sort of in a position now where we need more diverse voices, we need more diverse commissioning, and that's to make really important arguments and to kind of reset our moral compass as a society even. So yeah, it's really nice to be here and talk about such matters.
Hi everybody, my name is Susuana. I work at Arts Emergency and Programmes team. I also work part-time at a gallery in Brighton called Onca, and we specialise in social justice and environmental justice issues. And alongside the gallery, we have a boat in the marina. It's a really random thing to say, but it's where we have art workshops for young people and members of the community that raise awareness about social well-being and environmental issues and the local sort of environment there. So I work there as the gallery supervisor and comms manager. My life is sort of split in between sort of social justice activism, environmental activism, youth work, arts, access. My background is in student activism, specifically liberation, sort of feminism, all sorts, going out in the streets and shouting, mostly. Yeah, I ended up here tonight.
Yeah, that's right. And that's important to Arts Emergency as well. So I was an activist in my 20s, and I wasn't an artist. I was an English graduate, and I was an organiser and a union steward at the FT, and I felt like this whole area of human activity, the arts and culture, really needed to have a bit of confidence in itself. Like, we should all have confidence in ourselves to make a bit of change, and to say that what you're doing as an artist is not fluffy, it's not frivolous. It might look like that when only a really rarefied group of people seem to be able to take part in it, but actually it's something that's well, it's the name of the event tonight, but it is literally something we're all taking part in every day in our culture. So I was going to ask you, Stuart, about how you became an artist.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's a good question. How does anyone become an artist? I think maybe you are one anyway. Maybe like everybody makes something. Like I'm yet to find a child who isn't making something out of something around them. I think it's a very instinctive, natural thing. I think a better question is, when does people stop being an artist?
Yeah.
And what causes that? And it's that intersection where society comes into somebody's life and they're told what they can do, what they can't do, what's possible, what's not possible. Actually, for me, it would have been more likely for me not to be an artist because I came from a working class family. There wasn't much art around me. My love for art was seen as a bit weird, certainly at school. So it was something that I had to fight for. And it certainly didn't come easy. So, I probably spent best part of 10, 15 years going through what could be described as hell, like the cliched artist thing of, I was homeless at one point, there was no hot water at another point, but I kept making my work because it's what I believed in. So for me, it wasn't an easy thing.
Yeah, that's true. And I think that's something we see. We work with young people who are about 16, 17, and we work with them long term. So we support them right up till 24, which with extra opportunities. And Caris, my head of programs, is here tonight. It's a fantastic programs team. Obviously, Susuana's part of that as well at the moment. But yeah, you kind of see how many challenges you have if it's not something that is obviously an entitlement. I think it is a struggle for a lot of young people that they can pursue these things. Then you've got the different paywalls that you face. Of course, a lot of your work here addresses that in terms of the materials you need, and you kind of have to have a lot of self-belief and also people around you, I think, that believe in you as well. I mean, how about you? How did you get into curation, and especially it's such an interesting tangent through activism into that? And it's interesting to me because I was like activism into like charity and the arts. And
well, I had parents, like my granddad was an artist in Ghana. He was a famous artist, and my dad was really into art. He's like into architecture and like carpentry, but I was still not like told to go into art. I really wanted to be an artist since I was little, and it was like, can you do something that pays bills? But I was really stubborn, so I did like all sort of art tables and kept going through it until university. I did media arts because I wanted to do absolutely everything, and that was like a sort of broad spectrum degree. Then I like fell into student activism, and that was because I reached a point where like it was like the student movement was really kicking off, and I was thinking about, I'm going to be poor when I leave uni, my mum's going to be poor, like all the people I know are really struggling, so I sort of thought it was like my responsibility to sort of have a tangent and go into activism for a while, but it was always in the back of my mind. I was like leaving what I was passionate about like aside. So funny enough, I was a women's officer first at the University of London Union, which is now Student Central on Mount Street, and it was a massive building with tons of rooms. So I used to like give it away to activists all the time. But there was a little shop, it was a travel shop at the ground floor, and the lease ran out or something, and they couldn't get somebody in. So I was like, can I have this space? And it was like sort of half of this space, and they were like, yeah, whatever, do what you want. So I started a gallery, and it's the Playhouse because it was also doubled up as a crash because there was no local crashes.
Awesome.
So when it was not used as a gallery, we let students like study there with their kids and they could play with them. And I just wanted to get anyone who was an activist and an artist who didn't have the money to like show their work. I used to work with them. We used to put on exhibitions, so it was always very political. There was stuff about social housing, there was stuff about sex work, there was stuff about what it's like to be queer and Asian and living in London. So I sort of had like a DIY throw-in of like how to manage a gallery at a very young age. I think it was like 22 or something. Then I went really back into activism, so I couldn't do that anymore for 2 years, then I got to a point where I'm like, art is what I want to do. I need to actually take it seriously. So I moved to Brighton, like many creatives do, and I was really, really lucky in sort of job popped up to work at a gallery, which hardly ever happens in Brighton. It's a really tough industry. And I was like, there's no way in hell they're going to take me. And they were like, yeah, come through the interview. And I was like, what? So I'm like up against people who had tons of experience and tons of like work experience that I couldn't do. So I remember when I was in college and you get all these unpaid internships, and I was like, I can't afford to do this at all. So I was really nervous, but they looked at me like, because you have an activist background, an organizer background, and you care about these issues, and you've managed to like run a gallery while doing a full-time job, will actually like take you on, which is very like it was like a God-send moment. And since then, I've been like working curation, sort of bringing that energy and trying to work with people from underprivileged backgrounds and getting their work out there and like making sure that they're prepared, like supported to be their authentic self, especially in an industry that's like can be so very elitist. So yeah, that's how my weird route into
it's interesting. Yeah, I mean, because I'm not an artist. Well, my route was through political organising and then charity fundraising, and Arts Emergency was kind of my way of trying to manifest exactly that, like recognise like friends that I've got from so I'm from a working class background. No one I know became an artist, but everyone made music, and everybody, you know, every young person we meet, regardless of whether they want to be a lawyer or a historian, they all write terrible poetry. And I mean that as someone who's written, you know, at 14, 15, it's in all of us. And well, what a wonderful thing to do, though, you know. But you know, it is in all of us, and it is something that if only certain people can do it and get to that platform. And I really think culture is politics, you know. So it's a huge problem, isn't it? And that narrative of suffering, like for a lot of people, it's something that's almost an affectation. You know, I know, in fact, a friend of mine now, but a young person who joined in our very early days, will talk about the same thing in another industry, where she'll say everyone has to be, they've all struggled to get there, but you kind of know for some people. They actually haven't. Yeah.
Like, the fact is, like, some kids can afford to go to New York and intern or go to Paris because their parents are picking up the bill. I mean, the reality is that, like, art school for a lot of people is brutal, and when they come out of art school, they might be amazing artists, but if your dad doesn't know the gallerist who knows the gallerist friend, like, you're not getting a show there. Like, it's not, no one's looking at the quality of the work, you know, and this is still a huge problem now. In the 90s, there was a movement in visual art where it was kind of cool to have working class people in, Damien Hirst, Tracy Emin, but it was like a token thing. Now that has died down because art schools flipping expensive, living in a capital city's really expensive, and actually it's got so homogenised and so safe that these alternate voices, they're just not going to come through.
Safe's the word, because when you've got things like government funding being cut for these things, community arts, especially public arts, like where's the public art now that isn't backed, you know, but to really be a corporate advertisement of some way, shape or form. Yeah, just people cannot get in, and the sharper your elbows, it's not even like a deliberate thing sometimes, it's just you have enough in the tank to get into those positions where then perhaps you start to actually develop into a great artist, a problematic term that is, but yeah, that's our thing. It's like we've got to like storm the ramparts with more people that have got a lot to say, and you don't, it's not like you see diversity drives, like we were talking about it on the train up. I can't mention the company or the person that told me about it, but it's in publishing. It's a really high profile person that was offered something, do you already know? They wanted to throw lots of money for people of colour to get into publishing, and they basically wanted to do a big road show all around the country. I mean, how much does that cost, right? And then offer 4 people from these big road shows an opportunity to present manuscripts in order to get published. And that was, all of it was through the corporate responsibility side of things, rather than going, well, we need to think about, you know, our editorial process and our commissioning process and we're in a funny situation now, I think, where visual art is something I don't know enough about, but broadly in terms of like creative industries, There's now seems to be a market incentive for people to diversify and create opportunities, you know, like because they're thinking, oh, we need to appeal to more audiences. And it's great that the outcome is that young people we work with, many of them can actually find paid opportunities, but you worry about like how far people can progress and how much the pressures, the social pressures of insecure working arrangements and not being paid living wage, and all those for whom the struggle is real, for people that have to think about whether or not they have lunch, or if they buy for uni, they buy their expensive watercolour set, you know, or they've got to get that portfolio together, and the cost of materials, let alone the fees, let alone the charge of working for free. Like, it's a difficult...
It's a big deal, and materials are bloody expensive. I mean, that's why we made a not-for-profit watercolour set. We were the first people to do it, because it's amazing. It's a basic, fundamental thing. At least if we can arm people with good colours, so they have the potential to make something, then that's something we can do. But I think the other thing is, like, there's a lot of tokenism. You know, like what you're talking about, that roadshow is just a complete box ticking.
It's absolutely ugly example,
it's absolutely gross, and it's not actually a genuine support of a creative human being or their work. And the thing is, you know, what we need is more artists to be activists. So I've gone the other way around. I didn't start off as an activist. I just wanted to eat as an artist. But now I'm realising that maybe as an artist I can be useful. So I've gone full circle. So I'm trying to see what I can do to change things as an artist now. And I think that's an exciting thing.
Yeah, I mean, this is what I love. And it's why I'm so happy you joined us as well and you asked us to come. Because I think the intersection between political activism and arts and culture is like really untapped. Like, I know we can all think of protest songs and, you know, but just as individuals, as people who are wonderful communicators, who are used to dealing with difficult ideas, and like, we live in a world with so many difficult questions right now, like impossibly terrifying things going on all around us at many times. And like, it is so important, I think, that we have artists who represent all people, you know, because if we're going to save the planet, if we're going to save ourselves, like, everyone's got to be part of that solution, you know. It's such an important time, I think. And these tokenistic drives, I worry, like, who's deciding how it's done and who's running the show? And, you know, it's something that we're trying to change long term in our sort of long term approach, working with people from 16 to 24, because we hope, in fact, we're starting to see it happen now, that they join at 16 and you fan the flames, and it is that broad curiosity that you mentioned, you know, we love it. And you've been here for a while now. You know, when you get someone who wants to taste a bit of everything, and we can lay it on for them. It's potent, and to know you can support them long term and actually vouch for them and give them opportunities in their 20s and into their career is a really powerful, practical thing. But it's like a tiny, small answer, and no one else seems to look at the structures that young artists and academics and journal writers, we've all got the same problem, haven't we? I think.
I feel like mentoring, and like especially in the program scene where I work, where I see like the sort of direct impact of like mentor meetings and trips, and like seeing how like having somebody that's in the industry, the impact that has. Because I remember growing up and like literally knowing no one that I could speak to about how to get into the arts at all, but realizing I also work in HR, in diversity HR, that you can mentor someone like the best possible way, but if their industry is toxic and that sort of atmosphere is toxic, they won't survive. And that's why diversity drives have been up across the industry so much, but in some places it's like things are getting worse, because they're getting those like working class people, those people of colour in those sectors, and they're realising that they can't survive there because they're so toxic, and they're leaving again.
Yeah, because it's just like there's no structural change going on, and it plays into all the other social challenges that people face.
People don't realise, like, even having those like diversity drives, or like open calls, or whatever, or interviews, and then not covering expenses for the artists to get there, or covering audition fees. Like, what are those?
Or we see that at work, like to pay for auditions, or to get to uni interviews.
Yeah, or even pay for clothes for like your first week before you get your first paycheck. Or like,
beyond a studio space.
Yeah.
Like, I know you do a bit around this, but just the physical space, especially in cities, to make stuff. It's like, you know, even in Margate where I live, huge creative community, but they're all people in our kind of age range. So it's like mid-20s to 40s, and it's all laptop-based stuff, and it's like, it's great. You can make great work on a laptop, video and so forth, but there's just nowhere to make sculpture, nowhere to, you know, it's like...
There is a drive around the getting messy and getting it out and chucking it about, and that's one of the things we did in Bournemouth, where I live now, is we set up, it's kind of small, but there was nowhere to make work, so I made affordable studio spaces, you know, where people can come and make their work, and then they can become part of a community, and actually you're not some kind of weird outsider who has to move to London and go through the brutality of that, because you're totally right. If the structure hasn't changed and you find yourself in it, if you can't call your dad or your uncle or whatever, you could starve. Like, let's be true about it. And what are you going to do? Carry on making your work? Or are you going to get a job in a call centre or become a cleaner? And, you know, it's only a matter of a few weeks, couple of months, and the art's disappeared and you're something completely different. And that's a loss to everybody when that person
it is.
doesn't
And,
do
like,
it.
just to go back to what you said, every kid is an artist, you know, and it is like that sense of, like, I think, at the time we are, Arts Emergency really as an idea began around 2010, same time as UCL Occupation. Obviously, Josie and I, so I founded it with Josie Long, who's a stand-up comedian and my friend and fantastic political voice over the last 10 years. But it felt like that was a really important move for us to organise something that would address the problem and to not just be negative, but like reclaim the wonder of being curious and the wonder of learning about new things and new cultures and discovering, and like most of all sharing, like at a time where you feel like I'm a charity director, so I can't really get into politics of it, but when you feel that opportunities are shrinking and society is becoming a more prickly, cruel place, and it always has been a prickly and cruel place. I mean, if you look at any history, but it's kind of coming home in that sense, and yeah, it feels almost radical to be bold about, go out and make stuff, and that's why I love the materials that you make, and I love the way you've combined your activism with moving back into curation, and like it's important stuff. It's exactly like choosing what goes in a museum or what books get published. You know, these are
they're the big things. I mean, we desperately, we're at a time where we need those creative voices, actually, because we don't align with a particular political situation or whatever. You know, an artist can, luckily, in this country at the moment, we can actually say what we think. We can wake up in the morning and we can make a piece of work about something that we think and what we feel, and we can share that with other people. And we're so lucky to have that.
Massively lucky. We're in a country where kids are eating toilet paper. It was in the news last week. There's not much we can all do as individuals, right, about that bigger picture. But if we all do what we can, you know, you're in a position to do what you've done and create spaces and materials, everyone starts doing that, you really can make a difference. Because, like, it's lit for me. Like, there are a lot of personal reasons that I started this charity for as well. But it's like the right to have a dream and the right to aim. At what point? It's not even when does the world chip away at you pursuing your dream, but at what point do you give up as things being possible, and like representation and ways in and people at the top of the tree, visible people. It's something I guess we have more of it than ever before, but we have there's still none of it, if you know what I mean. I think not to get too negative, but like we're all standing for really important things, and I think the future is like ours to imagine, and that's our job really.
Hey, shall we open up to some conversation with these guys?
Yeah.
Yes, do it. Ask.
So I'm an art student at CSM. I'm coming here out for my student union as campaigns officer, and obviously this is true, but just to, so at UAL the attainment gap is about 26%, I think, for black students, less likely to get a first or a second, and the cost of study, I can't remember the statistics, but there's a clear correlation between how much you spend on a degree show and your grade.
What? Really?
Yeah, which is a big issue that we're trying to address now. And both very, very big issues, but just any, because we found that university management are shocked when they find out these things, and as students were horrified but not shocked, because that's obviously the realisation, that's the real life for all of us. But how have you found talking to people that can make those changes that would help people that aren't from those backgrounds? Because that's something that, as a union, as students, we're really struggling to actually get them to understand that students are leaving uni in serious debt because of having spent $5,000 on their degree show and still not going to get a good enough degree because they're not spending as much as they're for.
It's true.
Yeah.
Well, we've got a former NUS women's officer
Do
right
it.
here.
Say it.
I feel like at a point in my political career, I stopped using stats and figures because it was just, I felt it was too humanizing to like put people into like 30% of people feel this, and I set up situations where I like spoke truth to power. Really, I needed the actual story, however devastating it was. Either like students would send it to me, or if a student felt comfortable enough to sit that person with that person, tell them what's happened to them, because then they can't look away and be like, this doesn't really happen here. I feel like loads of people in power are so detached from like the realities of like what students are feeling, and they don't realise like there's lots of middle management within universities. So there's different departments that deal with like graduate shows, and there's so many different people, and they don't interact with those people. So sometimes they're just not even aware about how much students are spending or how much income they are spending on their graduate show, or the fact that students can't eat. I used to kind of get in trouble a bit. I do show all the time, but I was like to students, even if that works, if your institution isn't listening to you, take it to the press, take it to someone who will blow this like story like into the wind, because then your university has no choice but to respond to why your students eating or sleeping, because the institutions, it's reputation over everything. So even if they don't have hearts and they don't want to listen to student stories, they will like come to cover their reputation, and that's one of the fastest ways you can get them to act. I can say that now because I don't work for NUS.
Well, that's on point. That's beautiful.
Amazing.
Yeah.
That's good advice.
Yeah. For running a charity, and we are a charity for practical reasons, it began as something else. It's a bit harder to make that argument because we have to work with the gatekeepers as well. And what you really want to do is abolish private schools and have a basic income and abolish fees and reinstate grants and stop the corporatisation of the academy.
But I guess from like an arts perspective, if you could get a project together working with students to sort of document the stories across the board using all types of mediums to explain these sort of hidden stories of the struggles of current and like students that have left, and use that to make a really powerful creative project.
Yeah, because individuals within these institutions are quite often well-meaning, but so you've got the public university with their public responsibility. So as much as it has been marketised and as much as it has become a profit-making enterprise and they're billion-pound businesses, there is that public responsibility. And when there's social injustice taking place, I think it is about, it's a tough one. And it's just so great to know it's still happening, because it felt like it's not such a hot issue, the higher education right now. And it's something that was really important to us when we started, and even we've kind of moved into get your degree and get a job, and it's.
But even talking about, sorry, were you going to say something?
I was going to say that I don't know the answer, but I know the problem, and what you're seeing is more and more beautifully fabricated work in commercial galleries. Everything's very well finished. Frames are really expensive. It's this move towards perfection, and students feel that, hey, if I want to get gallery representation when I leave, or whatever, my work has to be good, and it's a competition, and they're competing with their peers. And sadly, you're in a world where if you can reach for a decent fabricator or a decent frame, it could just lift you above the rest. And I think that's so unbelievably sad. I mean, you find, like, I'm in Bournemouth and the Arts Uni expect the design students to come up to London for a week to go to the DNAD thing, and they've got to pay for their accommodation, they've got to pay travel. And I know very talented designers who didn't come this year because they couldn't afford to come. And that's going to completely affect their experience even of what they can see and what they can make. But I think you're right in the idea of raising the awareness for it outside the institution.
Yeah, because they're not unaware of it. They can't be unaware of it. So it's got to be, it's more than a moral objective. It does become that. They've got to respond to it kind of situation. That's campaigning 101, I think. Good luck to you.
Yeah.
Fair play. Yeah. So, any other questions?
I just want to follow up on if it's to do with the Black Attainment Gap. You're working on curriculum design, I assume. Yeah, and I'm talking to the university about how they are, in fact, like replicating that system. That means that people of colour, us of colour, aren't being noticed because if they're not in the curriculum, and also you're letting them down when it comes to their graduate shows and their grades. Look at how the institution's actually feeding into that because it's all like connected. So I feel like people don't realise how like vast the Black Attainment Gap issue is, and it's to do with a lot of it's to do with students not feeling like they belong in those institutions for many reasons. One, they can't afford to be there, nobody looks like them, the teachers don't look like them, the curriculum doesn't think artists of colour exist. So yeah, it's a massive project.
God, yeah, decolonising the whole damn thing as well. There's a lot. There's so much to be done, and it's a bit like the environmental situation or the finance. And then when the crash happened in 28, before we started this, it's like it feels, all these things feel so insurmountable, massive, and it's just like having conversations like this, and like what better person to answer your question than Susuana? It's like it's all of us just pulling each other along, I think, and like having each other's backs. And I'm really interested to hear that the drive to perfection. That's such a worrying thing because I've seen that in the music industry where you got to turn up with a ready-made, market-ready demo to get signed, even by an indie label. Yeah. And it's the same kind of thing because you have to have all the. It's not about your philosophy, your ideas, your talent, or your commitment at all. And that, surely that should be all it's about. But it's about your ability to.
A lot of times you come out of a degree and it's very early doors. As an artist, like you haven't found your voice yet, you haven't made your work yet, you can't be expected to be as good as someone who's been going for 30, 40 years. Are you seeing at the Tate? It's ridiculous. It's just ridiculous.
I'd mentioned this to you on the train, but it's appropriate. I got interviewed by a big philanthropic consultancy a few years back because a visual artist wanted to set up a foundation. Bear in mind, I was running a charity that was bringing in like 90 grand a year. And I was like, brilliant, he wants to help. I don't know who it was anonymous. But what this fella wanted to do, and I mean big money, was set up an apprenticeship for artists so that you wouldn't go to art school, appalled by the fees, and it came from a good place, but so you wouldn't go to art school, which I still think going to art school, university, these things, they're ridiculously expensive, but there's so many wonderful reasons to go still. And we should sort of keep fighting for that right to get to these places as much as alternatives. But they wanted to create literally I think it was a 1-year apprenticeship program to become an artist. And it's like such a strange, utilitarian. You can't produce artists and thinkers, to broaden it to all the pursuits. You need time, you need security. It's Maslow's hierarchy, and at the top is art. You get your shelter, your water,
Yeah.
And art is like the natural next step for that, and it just feels like something that, all the three of us, and I'm sure all of you here, are just still like making that point as the problems around us get so big. I feel guilty, like as someone who was working in global labour rights as an activist and who was fundraising for development work. I have to justify it to myself sometimes, go, no, I'm doing this thing and it's in the arts because that really matters, because that's how we're seeing ourselves and other people. And I
feel the hidden cost of being an artist is never really broken down as much to artists, but also the general public. I didn't know much about my granddad, the one that was an artist, because he died before my dad was born. But I was like, in my head, I was like, how did he afford to become an artist? It didn't make no sense because he came from like a fishing village, and somebody made him a Wikipedia page, not me. And then I learned that he got a scholarship to go to like the top painting school. Then he got a scholarship to come to London to go to Goldsmiths. And when he came back, he set up a painting school for like poorer like people that couldn't go to the sort of place that he got to. So it was all done through like scholarships, which is great that he had opportunity, but nobody else could have done.
That's the difficulty, isn't it? Like I had that with setting Arts Emergency up, because the first thing that Josie wanted to do, and it's perfectly valid, was pay 10 people's fees to go to uni so they could go and study an arts or humanities subject without the yoke of debt and the guilt that's associated when, and you touched on it earlier, when you don't have that around you, and you too, you have to keep justifying it to yourself on a personal basis. And it was just impossible to do that, because it's like, how do you make that socially effective? Which 10 kids do you choose to change their lives, you know? And it's so hard. Like, that's why I'm in the long game now and trying to build something that stays quite small and lasts a generation, you know, and kind of self-sustained, so that you just get that ladder coming down permanently, and eventually you get people that are the gatekeepers and the policy makers. But I feel like that takes time, and it's like, it's no use me saying that to a young person that I meet who's just graduated and they're going, no one wants to pay me, or for example, I've got to work for free at Sainsbury's for a week in order to get a job. It's like, these are social issues, aren't they? And it's like as artists, I think our job is to just keep on talking about them, keep on raising them, keep on showing them in different ways. But
the culture will shift. It has to.
Literally has to.
But it's time. It's moving. I'm optimistic about it.
Yeah, me too. I think despite what we're saying, right? Yeah, it is our brand, optimism. I wouldn't do it if I wasn't. But you know, it has to be, because like sharing is such an important human thing, right? And sharing ideas is the freest thing, and we've got the internet, and it's got all this wonderful potential. So it feels.
The internet's brought things a lot through, because you're seeing all these artists from around the world who are heavily talented but don't have a platform, don't have a studio, didn't go to art school, couldn't get to art school, and it's just like it's clear to see that there's so many people out there, and then but the people that end up in galleries are the people that have the connections or can afford to be there.
But I think there is an opportunity with the internet, which it has democratised at least the sharing of the work, at the very least. Like, whether it's monetised or not, whether they can eat off it's a different story. Yeah. But at least we're hearing the voices, and that's a great start. And I think one of the things we've found through what we're doing is we have a very online community. It's very active. We're starting to really champion the work that's being made. And, you know, we're completely funded by our audience. It's crowdfunded, essentially. Yeah. So we can provide not-for-profit paint sets because somebody's willing to pay a bit extra for their paint set to pay it forward so the next person on the website can have theirs.
We are here. It's all monthly donations from people who want to get it.
It works. Like, it's viable that we can start to support one another. And it's exciting to see that grow.
Yeah. Oh, it's a beautiful thing, isn't it? Because Arts Emergency is 97% crowdfunded, and it's getting quite big now. And like, it's a big reason for optimism, right? It's just, it is helping each other on. And we are doing it, and we have got so much access to information now. I do feel positive. I just think the problems are not worth playing down. You know, I don't think the answer to the problem is someone who's already perhaps structurally part of the problem coming up with that solution. You know, it just has to come as a popular change. You know, especially in culture, I think it has to be.
Yeah. I'm not like from a traditional art background or anything, but it might be ignorant and stupid, but why is the apprenticeship such a terrible stupid idea? Because, I mean, obviously art school's the ideal, same as if you want to make like an accountant, going to university is the ideal, but after 1 or 2 year apprenticeship they don't come out as an accountant, but they've learned some skills and they've got some experience. Is there not some way of doing something like an
I think it's a great point. So in terms of becoming an artist, my criticism of that was that it was a 1-year project that you would go through, and really you're learning parts of craft, you know, and you're learning how to make things, which of course is valuable. But then it's all, for me, it was always about what next? Like, where do you go with that next? Because of course the traditional path does offer all kinds, you know, hopefully you get your peer network together and there are people that will support you. And an apprenticeship felt more atomised in the kind of way that project, which never happened incidentally, was quite atomising and short term. But I think that's a great point. I mean, it's kind of what we're trying to do where we are. We don't have loads of money to fund people, but it is about being there long term, you know, trying to be there for the full 8 years. So make your informed choice in your teens, and we'll just keep sharing opportunities and helping you access advice like Light Touch. But yeah, I think people should just be paid for a year, a curiosity year, you know, and just find out. It'll be so much better for it.
Exactly.
Our foundation. When there was a podcast I was listening to, and they were saying it should be like, instead of national service, you know.
Yeah. That's
I mean, it's like, I think also the creative businesses need to wake up, because one day a guy knocked on my door, and my studio used to be a digital marketing agency, and he was looking to intern at a digital marketing agency. And I was like, what are you looking for? And he was like, it's a digital company. I was like, well, we make art materials, I'm an artist. And he was like, oh, do you need an intern? I was like, well, I don't believe in internships, mate. If you're going to work, you're going to get paid. Can you use Photoshop? He's like, I'll have a go. So he came, fell in love with art. He was with me for 2 years, started going to life class, started coming up to London to art shows, went and did his foundation while he was still working with us. And we really, I think it helped him. I think he'd say that it was a good experience. And then he just got accepted into St Martin's to do his degree. And like, we're really proud of him. And, you know, it's just an amazing thing that I didn't care what grade he was, you know. And I think that we just need a lot more open-mindedness about who, you know, like you said, you were surprised they'd even give you a job, you know. You're like, they'll never take me, you know. And I think it's waking up to the fact of that as well. And even early on, it doesn't matter. Yeah. It doesn't have to be after the degree.
No, it can be any time, absolutely. And I think the trouble is everything's got a monetary value, really. The drive towards perfection in visual arts, the need to provide a market-ready demo in music industry circles. It's like...
Also, I think internships and apprenticeships are like really rocky avenues. Like, they can be amazing opportunities, but some people do just exploit them to, like, they just need extra people and they can't bother to, like, hire a member of staff.
Fair point.
And therefore they just take this poor sod on and then work them to death. At our gallery, we do paid internships through like a first generation program through the university. So yeah, first generation scholars work with us. But I'm always anxious about, okay, what do you want from this? What do you want to learn? Because I just don't want to like have you as like my person to do things that I don't want to do. And I feel like when people have these internships, they don't have the student or the young person or the like newbie artist in mind. So whilst they can be like amazing opportunities, they can like fall through to exploitative messages too. But also we also run a sort of monthly group called Graduate Monthly, and the reason that started is because loads of students were leaving their foundations or degrees or like graduate or not graduated and finding that they didn't have any support and they weren't prepared for the artwork, and they didn't realise they needed to have connections and the hierarchies they needed to be part of, and they just didn't have that support network. So we created this space that they could come monthly, and I realised how important that was and how art schools just weren't political enough, not just the content, but also making their students aware of the world and how the art industry works, or how to like deconstruct those, like why that needs to change. And that was like, leaving them open to like vulnerability and like becoming broke artists and not be able to pay their rent because they don't know how to be in the art world. Yeah,
well, we shorthand that as hustle. Not to be glib, but just like, it is like that. Yeah. It's a mindset, and I think poverty, structural disadvantage, prejudice, the things that kind of deny you getting those softer, like that confidence to blag it or to chance it, or send that email. Ask to be paid. Oh my gosh. Like the lack of entitlement amongst young people even young people we've worked with for a while, like, shocks me because I'm not on the front line anymore. You know, it's a bigger organisation. Still shocks me the lack of entitlement. Grateful for this free work, and
yeah, it's so wrong.
It's just, you know, yeah, it is. It's just basically unfair, and it should be something that big arts funders, government arts funders, should insist. We're going to fund your project, and do you know what? If you've created a staff role in it, and you can't afford it in the budget, then, you know, if it's a key role, you got to pay it. And it's, but I thought unpaid internships were illegal now, but I think I might have imagined that. You know, I'm sure I saw headlines a couple of that.
It's not an internship.
On Google, going through multiple websites, I'm sure it was made illegal. I'm like, no, you're right, it's perfect.
Yeah, I thought it was illegal. I mean, it wasn't.
It's wrong.
I have loads of thoughts and loads of observations, but I did just have a direct question. I was just curious. At Arts Emergency, do you get more people who have done their degree and then go up, or do you get them before university?
Well, given our age as an organisation, most of our young people, like the bulk of our young people, are at university now or in a comparable kind of part of their journey. 2 and 3, yeah. But early careers is a new area for us, and we are seeing young people getting paid work in the industries that we work across: publishing, arts, museums. Straight from uni, yeah. But I couldn't give you a percent on that. But I do feel like in my gut, like it's the next phase for us. Is like, actually, all I cared about with Arts Emergency was that people actually went to uni if that was what they wanted to do, and that they got a paid job at the end of it. You know, like the bigger picture is that we want to get to about 5,000 people in this network, and some of them are going to be the next Jews, some of them are going to be the next Susuanas and gatekeepers, but just everyone would have had this wonderful, like this curiosity year with their mentor. You know, they would have had the time to explore, and then just a bit of practical support. Because to be honest, I don't know if there's any billionaires in this room, but like communally, all together, that's all we could muster. It started in a basement of a bookshop with 50 of us figuring out like what we could do to help people 10 years younger than us out. And now they're nearly 20 years younger than me, and I'm sort of trying to make it bigger and keep it fresh. But yeah.
I think that's a big thing about the value of the arts generally. My experiences is from working within further education. So these are young people before they go to university, and sat in a particular session talking to them, and so many were kind of like, I want to do something creative. I don't know what that is. I don't want to be a teacher. I can't see myself being supported as an artist. And to them it was that. That's their choices. And they were like, I don't want to go to university, it's too expensive. So for those young people who want to do something creative, there's a gap.
Yeah, it's
There's a gap
hard.
because it's like, can't afford university, don't want to be a teacher, can't see how I can begin to support myself or have a career as an artist. So they're just kind of like, oh, I'll go and work at the shopping centre.
Yeah, you must see, because we're kind of a biased sample as well, because we work across a larger number of schools and offer a small amount of places, because we want to find people that are really able to benefit from it. So we have the luxury of doing that, you know.
The motivation on the flip side,
Yeah.
they've got to want it, because otherwise they throw it away.
But I think in a lot of FE, like this is controversial, a lot of them are there because they know what they don't want to do. Right? I don't want to do this, don't want to do that. Art looks like an easy one. I'll do that for a couple of years while I work it out. But the reality of being an artist, when it dawns on you, it's like, what? That is an immense thing I have to do. I have to somehow get a degree. I have to move out my hometown. I have to... And, you know, it is a crisis moment. I mean, most of the people I went to college with and did my thing, they're not making art now. Of course they're not.
It's the same with performing arts, because I support that area as well.
It's really sad.
Yeah, and then it's it's counter, it's that balance between like, I'm going to work in the service industry and then
Like even that. even that point, you've got someone at 16, 17 and they're about to consider university. It's worth knowing that these subjects facilitate you into all kinds of different paths as well. Like, that's something I didn't know when I went to university. And I went...
They need to know that education about careers and creative careers needs to be more prominent.
And not say like, oh, you're studying history, therefore you're going to be a historian. You're studying English, therefore you're going to be a publisher. Making that rather fake link, because there is so much else. There are all these other challenges, you know, and that's something at our place we try and address and support with. But like, if you want to do it,
it's also the parents, like, you know, if they don't understand art, they don't want you to do it. I mean, I really fought with mine. They made me do a load of academic subjects. I actually snuck into the art school and started joining into classes I wasn't supposed to be at. And it came to a head because if you're underage, you know, your parents have to sign the form. And the art teacher was like, Stuart, you know, like, your parents have to sign this. You can't be here. And, you know, luckily convinced my mum that it was a good idea. But, you know, if I'd have listened to them, they didn't want me to do that. They were like, you'll chop your ear off, you'll die in a bedsit drinking meths, we don't want this for you. You know, you're a smart kid, don't go to art school. Like, it was the plague or something. I mean, it's a bit better now.
Oh, I literally was having this debate with my mother-in-law about someone in our family, you know, like wanting to do archaeology and whether it was worth it. It's still the case. We see it at work and it's so hard. Like, all I can do and all we can do at Arts Emergency is just make sure everyone has all the information they can get to make that decision for themselves, because there's no point pretending you haven't got to fight that battle to do it. There's no point pretending it's easy, like some diversity program or access program's going to massage your way. You know, it's just not the case. And it's like, yeah, my thing is like, respect these young people, know that they're wise, tell them how it is and let them figure it out.
Well, also they do need the added support. So I do some like freelance work in artist management. I normally use work with like younger artists or emerging artists and sitting with them like talking to them about how finances and invoices work and how to like look at your costs and like, have you paid your rent this month and like can you afford that travel? Yeah,
it teaches them nothing.
It's not. It's through that work I realised how much was missing because I didn't go to art school. I was like, how do you teach you to live?
I say, like, if you've got a strong family support, middle class kind of cultural knowledge, these things, you do learn these things implicitly, don't you? You learn your hustle implicitly, whereas, a lot of us don't. We kind of have to, learn it the hard way.
Be broke for a while.
Yeah. True that. Does anyone want to say anything else?
Here's an advice question. So, I think one of the things that's come through all of this is that the people who most subsidise the arts are artists. And that's sort of the thing that no one really talks about, is that, I mean, again, you'll know that from theatre, that it's artists who go, oh, well, I'll just take 30% of the box office, not 50%, or going to Edinburgh where you end up spending thousands of pounds you don't have to do a show for loads of people who can afford. So, what's your advice to people in jobs, like just in normal jobs? Like, what things can people do to slightly shift the system in favour of?
So people just in any kind of walk of life, rather than just working in this sector. I would say, buy Stuart's art material and
buy the red, because that helps you.
Buy the red, because that comes to us, and direct your donations towards some causes like this. And there are plenty of them around now. I might say I think we're the best one, but I would. But I think it's important. And somebody mentioned the value. You said the value of art's basically for everyone, and people do appreciate that. They do understand that these things are important. They enrich our lives, and we're all part of it. So I think supporting causes and considering like how you go about patronage. There's all kinds of crowdfunding options now. And I think you can make a real, if you're a consumer, you can go and...
But can I just touch on the directness of it? Because I remember when I lived in London, there was an artist, I loved her work. It was flipping amazing. And I'd sold a painting, so I wasn't completely broke. And I went round to her studio, and she was struggling to pay for the studio. I was like, you flipping idiot. Don't lend us some money. Buy the blooming painting, if you can. Like, give them £200. They're only going to spend it making more work.
Yeah.
Like, it's a very direct thing. If you love art, you love a theatre company, you love a dance company, go and support them. Buy the ticket, buy the work.
And you can buy artwork now interest-free, can't you? There's this whole...
You're saying there's great work on Instagram. Actually, write to them. I love that.
Yeah.
I do it all the time.
Share it with
They
your
can't
friends.
believe it. They're like, what, you want to buy it? It's like, yeah, how much is it? They're like, £200. I'm like, fine. And then it comes. And I love it.
Yeah.
Right?
Win-win.
It's not hard.
You get your artist friends to commission things that are like £10, £5, just
Pay them extra.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, because you're my friend, I'll give you a friend discount. No.
No, pay them.
That you would normally charge a client because you're my friend and I want to support you and your cause and what you're doing. It's supporting your friends in it as well. They've got to be there for each other.
Yeah.
I've got loads of creative friends who are always like, I'll never make it as an artist, but I've got it as a hobby. And they're going, cool, what are you selling? What have you got going? Cool, I want to buy these 3 things, how much are you doing? They're like, oh, you're my friend, I'll give you free. What's your PayPal? It's 30 quid.
Yeah. I'm literally always helping my friends price stuff because they're like, oh, I'll have this little exhibition. I'm like, okay, how much that cost? They're like, I wasn't thinking about selling it. Like, I was like, what? They were like, oh, maybe I'll sell it for like £50 and make £100. Like, people don't know that value of their work.
And the value of their time they put into it as well. A lot of people just go, well, the materials cost X amount, so I'll charge that. It's like, well, how long did it take you to make it? How much are you charging per hour for the hour that you've put in there? You've got to take that in consideration as well. And it's just putting that support into your friends and making sure that even if it's not their day job, then they get something else. Yeah.
Now we're at a teaching rate at £25 an hour.
It's the same with these internships that pay people ridiculously low amount of money. It's like, how much are you worth? How much do you want to get out of this? And then people sit down and charge it. I've been offered shit jobs before, and I've full on turned around and go, appreciate it, would rather be unemployed for a while until I find something better.
Yeah, I think that's the other thing, holding out for it. Because like my first show was in a cafe, it was the only place to put my work up. My pictures were £700, and I felt like that was a lot of money. And actually everyone kind of laughed at me, and I didn't really sell anything. But I didn't want to, they were worth that to me. And it wasn't until my second or third show that I actually sold any work, but I didn't sort of give up with that idea. And it's like, I think people are a bit impatient. Like, there's kids coming out of college now, and I understand they've spent a ton on their degree show. I get it. But I'm seeing work that's like 15 grand at degree shows, and they've had no other shows, no one knows them. It's complete insanity. You kind of have to get it moving, So it's a bit of a balance.
Yeah.
Such good advice. People need to know these things, don't they?
Little things you can do in your community is just supporting each other and supporting your friends, and that could be just something in uni who's going, I'm broke this week.
Yeah.
Can you afford to help them out with their supplies?
I wonder how that plays with the sort of general assumption that the art world is for French dukes and people with independent means, and that kind of, that is a stereotype, isn't it? That puts people off, is that narrative. And I wonder how that plays into everyone's approach to, because, if it's not valued by, this stuff is not valued by government, it's, it kind of trickles down, not just government, but, if...
And then this whole, your family are discouraging you from doing it.
Yeah.
If your friends aren't supporting you in it as well.
Self-esteem must be so hard.
16, using GCSEs or however old I was, and all my friends going, I really want to do this, but my mum said no. I go, Mum sounds like a dick. Give my dad no choice, I put it down on paper, I can do this. I went, you sure? Yeah. Okay. Just put your foot down. If you're passionate about something, you love something, do something about it.
Yeah, but there also has to be something that's nurturing that from the start. I didn't ask you a question. So, is how can we take the concepts that you're brewing and trickle them down to, I'm a primary school teacher. It's like the art education art starts when you're a tiny little pickle, that's where it starts. So it's how can we then trickle the concepts down and encourage parents, children and enable them to be artists. And you said something right at the beginning about losing that creativity. It's like, do schools kill that creativity?
They do, but I feel for you because the bureaucracy, you've got to be there. The social issues come in. Have they eaten? Has their dad been? You're dealing with all of that, right? And trying to squeeze art in the middle of a curriculum. You haven't even got Pritt Stick. I've heard you haven't got Pritt Sticks. Is that true? I mean, right. So these are institutional problems, right? And I don't run a charity. I can get political. The government don't care. So it's terrifying, and I don't know what you do. Like, I feel for you so much because I can see that is where it is.
But it's still, you know, where do you find 10 minutes to talk about art at the end of the day? Do we just like freehand and draw like every second you have? We squeeze it in, do we find materials from the community? What links do we make and how? So you've built something. How do we then like create that snowball effect but lower down? That's what I want to know. If you have any advice.
We've got a youth program. We've got like Onka Kids Art School, which is the cutest program because it's like under 11s. And we also work with schools. So I figured out through working at Onka, you can turn any lesson to art lesson, absolutely any lesson. So where we can, we will. Like we do a lot of stuff when we take them out to the beach and like look at rocks or animals and stuff and bring it back to classroom. How can we make this into a piece of art? Sculptures. We've done like a sculpture project by the beach using the kids' artwork. And making sure they know like art is for everybody. You don't have to be like a posh French person to like create something that's worthy.
What's the French thing?
French Jew.
I see. Yeah.
The wig and
yeah.
Louis XIV kind of thing.
Like an artist can be absolutely anyone. You don't have to be of a certain status for your artwork to be worthy to be in the space. Like even when I was younger, I was like a really arty kid. Like really, really, really arty kid. That one of my teachers picked me out and like, well, I guess it was my first exhibition. I guess I was like 6 years old or something, and I think I painted. I think it was a lion. It was like mural. It was like a Size's wall, and like they want you to do it, and it was the most special thing ever. That somebody thought I was like special enough to like actually be on the wall. So even like putting kids' stuff on the wall when they make it and be like, this is really good, and actually encouraging them throughout that process to continue on. I see a lot of kids that even work with us who they don't completely want to do the arts. They do have like might go to medicine or might go to accounting or something else. But I want to remain in this space. I still want to develop and making that possible for them. Being like, you don't have to drop this. You can like fit it in if you're passionate about it and supporting that. And also, just representation is so key because I guess a lot of people think I don't look like an artist. Even when I go to other people's galleries and I see like gallery workers, I'm like, I don't look like that. This is what I wear to work. It's sort of like that sort of breaking that concept in your mind that an artist looks like a certain way and you have to be a certain standard or certain level of perfect to call yourself an artist.
Yeah,
I don't know if that helps.
I mean, I just...
We've got your question. Sorry, she's been waiting.
So I work for an arts organisation in North Kent, one of their Creating People and Places projects. So Arts Council set them up to be in places where there isn't much arts going on. I've worked there for nearly 3 years now, and I was working at Wix beforehand. What we do is we sometimes say, right, if you're teaching kids how not to be too stuck on perfectionism, you're teaching resilience, you're teaching coping mechanisms. It's sneaking art in through the back door, and then I can just sit and you can say, right, let's start. You've got artists now.
I think we're at a point where it's probably always been the case, but teachers are the heroes in that story because of the bureaucratic burden. You will both know it. I just saw it. I did a PGCE, but I see it from the outside now, and it just looks overwhelming. And to make that space, to sneak it in, to broaden out a lesson experience, and to like vindicate. Like, in terms of how Arts Emergency translates to that group, I think it's just a very obvious answer that when we're big enough, we can provide access to all kinds of practitioners. But it's already happening. I know you do stuff in your local area.
Yeah.
And obviously, you've mentioned the project down there. It is happening.
Yeah, the thing is, I turn up in a primary school for an afternoon and we get out the eco-glitters and we talk about art and I show them some artists. And I know I'm not there the next day, you know, and that's where I struggle.
It's just creating that spark and like having that excitement, which is why I wanted to come and like see what else was happening out there. So it's just about engaging and showing people that you like there doesn't need to be any pressure around that. It just has to be, and to show like that anybody can create through that and just have that like release.
Oh mate, that age group is so precious and so important at that time.
Keeping it alive, like past 5, 6, 7, 16.
Encouraging them to connect with like local arts. I know it's really hard to like take about and stuff. But recently we had an exhibition which basically any member of our gallery, it's a free gallery, but we raise money through membership, can enter a piece of artwork for once a year as part of our annual thing. And a school contacted us and they said, we've got I think she was 10 years old, 11-year-old, and she's she's really good at art, and we just want to have her artwork in a grown-up gallery. Can we submit her? And they just paid for a membership so she can have her artwork. So it's really funny. It's I just imagine all these school kids coming in and the sort of opening evening where everybody's in a fancy wear, and they're but that sort of encouragement is just from a teacher and from a school is amazing. And I that sort of teachers are overwhelmed on top of everything they're doing, but going the extra mile to make sure they see themselves as part of the artist community, however old they are.
There's been a lot of structural change, more right. I definitely want to just modify it. That's why I came here, to be inspired.
Yeah, but just keep at it.
Yeah, vice versa. It's very inspiring to hear. People still do it because it is hard, and I don't have the answer. I've done my best with Arts Emergency, and I hope it continues. But it has to come from the top, But we can make it change from the bottom up, I think, and funding needs to come back, doesn't it? Testing needs to roll back, and we all kind of know what would make the problem better.
We need to do. It's common sense.
And we're it's catch-22 though, because we can't make the economic argument for these things because that sucks, and you just precipitate.
It doesn't have to be an economic argument.
Exactly.
There's other ways that things are valued.
Exactly.
You have to have a number on it all the time.
That's the nub of it, isn't it? It's we all know there are more important things that are more valuable than the bottom line, but we just live in our context is all about it has to be on those terms, and to be optimistic, I just hope that everyone here kind of feels that way, and everything we're doing just tessellates and continues. I think keeping going on whatever front you're working right now is the key right now. It could get a lot better, very quickly. I say that about everything, but you got to believe it can get better real quick. And that's what keeps me at it.
I feel I want to see a future where people are making creative cases for things, creative case for diversity, creative case for education. So many industries I looked at and worked at, and it was okay, what's the business case for this? How it's gonna get us money, and therefore then I'll look at your project. And I'm that's the wrong angle for any of these things, and that's why nothing ever changes, because we're only appealing to the top when we can make more money. And if we value creativity and culture, we need to have the creative case and have the cultural case, and why does this matter?
Because if you make the economic case alone for young people to experience art in the curriculum or to have access to opportunities, you've already lost the argument, because it's basically like going to a lawyer and going, I've read this pamphlet about law and I've decided to rewrite the European Human Rights Act. They just know more about it than you. They'll keep on squeezing.
You can't win on that.
You just can't win on those terms. You can win with the good stuff, and it's I think that's a brilliant truth. That beauty will out.
Well, I think we're out of time, but we can mingle and talk a bit if you want.
Thank you.
Yeah.
For having us.
Thanks for coming to our art shop.
Good that we got through it.
It was fun.
I'd say that.